Welcome, listeners, to Tales, a podcast that brings your short stories to life through narrations, sound effects, and more. These stories will be brought to you by different authors with different writing styles, but with the same spooky vibes. So, lock your doors, check your closets, make certain there's nothing lurking under your bed, and enjoy.
And thereby hangs a tale.
Journal of Caleb Reed, 2nd Mate, October 17th, in the year of our Lord Jesus Christ, 1854. The storm took us just before dusk. What began as a hard wind off the western water turned, within the hour, into something far worse. The waves rose in a manner I have not seen in all my years at sea. Not merely high, but violent, as if the water itself had grown agitated with us. Captain Hale gave the order to pull back and hold the line, but by then we had already drifted too far from the known route. The men did what they could. We all did. But there is a point at sea when effort becomes more ceremony than survival. The wind howled so fiercely it drowned out shouted orders, and twice Jonas was nearly swept clean from the deck before Bram hauled him back by the collar of his shirt. We could not press forward. Not without risking the ship. So the captain made the call to anchor off of an unfamiliar stretch of coast. I cannot say where we are with any certainty. The charts are little use in the storm, and what land we glimpsed between the breaks of rain showed no recognizable markers. Rock and dark shoreline. Still, it was land. We lowered what we could and made for shore in poor order. Soaked through and near spent. The tide fought us all the way in. By the time our boots struck sand, it was near full dark. We made camp there, if such a word can be used. There was no proper shelter, only a rise in the land where the wind struck us less directly. Bram managed a fire after 3 failed attempts, though it burned low and mean, offering more smoke than heat. The rest of us huddled close, said little. No one had the strength for talk. The storm did not let up. It pressed against us, constant and unrelenting, as if urging us back into the water. October 18th, 1854. I write this with some difficulty. We woke this morning in a state I cannot properly account for. Not merely fatigued, as would be expected after such a night, but drained. My limbs felt heavy, as though I had labored for days without rest. Jonas complained of the same, and even Captain Hale, who rarely shows such things, appeared slower in his movements. The fire had gone out sometime in the night, though none of us recall it happening. We took a head count and realized that one of our number was missing. It was Thomas. At first, we assumed he had wandered off to relieve himself or scout the shoreline, but after an hour passed with no sign, concern took hold. We searched the immediate stretch of beach, calling his name out over the sound of the surf. Yet there was nothing, no footprints beyond our own. The rain had eased some in the early morning, but the tide had already erased what little traces there might have been. There was no blood, nor disturbance in the sand. It is as though he simply rose in the night and walked into the sea, though I do not believe that to be the case. Thomas was not a man given to foolishness. Bram suggested the possibility that he had been taken by the water in the dark. It is not impossible. The tide was high and we were poorly positioned, but there would have been a noise, a cry at the very least, a gurgle, but none of us heard anything. Elias, for his part, claims the storm may have masked it. He also said something else, though quieter, and only to me. "That wind don't sound right," he said. "Not like weather." I did not press him on it. Later in the morning, once it became clear Thomas would not return, We turned our attention inland. It was Jonas who first spotted it. A thin column of smoke rising beyond the tree line, further up from the shore. A town, or so we hoped. We debated briefly whether to remain where we were or to seek aid. The ship remains anchored offshore, though I cannot say in what condition. Supplies are limited, and with one man already gone and the storm showing no sign of clearing fully, the captain decided we could not afford to sit idle. We made for the smoke. The walk inland was not long, though the terrain was uneven and damp from the storm. The trees grow huddled together here, tall and narrow, their branches bending under the weight of constant wind. There's a smell to this place. Salt, yes, but something older beneath it. A rot, perhaps, like wet earth left too long untouched. We spoke little as we walked. I cannot say why, but the silence felt appropriate. We came upon the town shortly after midday. It is small, no more than a dozen buildings that I could count at first glance, though there may be more further in. The structures are simple, but well kept. A general store, what appears to be a boarding house, and a chapel standing at the center, its steeple rising above the rest. There were people there, and they saw us before we called out. I expected surprise, perhaps suspicion even. Instead, they greeted us as though our arrival had been anticipated, with a calm acceptance that I find still difficult to forget. The man who approached us first introduced himself as Mr. Calder. He spoke in a measured tone, his manner polite but reserved. "You've come in from the storm," he said. More a statement than a question. Captain Hale confirmed as much and explained our situation, omitting Thomas for the moment. Calder listened without interruption, then nodded. "You'll want shelter," he said, "and something warm." There was no hesitation in his offer, nor discussion among the others. They made room for us without question. We were led to the boarding house. The interior was clean, and again modest, and also warmer than I would have expected. A woman, Mrs. Calder I believe, brought us broth and bread without being asked. The food was simple, but it steadied the men some. Still, I could not help but notice something strange. No one else ate. They sat with us, watched in a manner that was not quite rude, but it was attentive, as though observing us. Jonas whispered as much to me when he thought no one could hear. "They ain't touched a thing," he said. I told him to mind himself, but I had noticed it too. As evening approached, the town grew quiet. It wasn't gradually as most places do. It was more of an all-at-once affair. Doors shut, windows latched. The few people who had been about the streets vanished indoors as the light began to fade. By the time the sun had dipped below the line of trees, there was no one outside at all. There were no animals either, now that I could hear amongst the silence. There was no barking of dogs or horses stomping their feet, livestock braying. Nothing. For a place that appears sustained, it is oddly absent of life in this regard. We were given rooms. Although shared, it was sufficient given how we slept the night before. God bless. Yet Bram has taken to pacing. Though he tries to hide it, he does not trust this place. I can see it plainly in the way his eyes move, always watching the doors, the windows. Elias, on the other hand, seems comforted by it. "There's a church," he said earlier. "That's something." I did not answer him. Before retiring, I stepped briefly outside. The air had grown still, the storm quieter than it had been, though it hadn't entirely gone. The sea could still be heard in the distance, restless. The town itself was, again, silent, and for a moment, only a moment, I had the distinct impression that I was not alone out there, that something stood just beyond the reach of the lantern light, watching me. But I saw nothing definitive, and I heard nothing I could place. Yet the feeling remained long enough to send me back inside. Cowed as I was, I will sleep now, though I find I am not as certain as the rest as I was last night. Something about this place sits poorly with me, and Thomas is still unaccounted for. October 19th, 1854. I did not sleep well. There is a heaviness that lingers even after rest, as though sleep itself offers no true relief. I woke twice in the night, though I cannot say what stirred me. No sound or movement. A sensation was there, one in the corner of the room, like I wasn't alone. I couldn't help but tell Bran about it, and he claimed that he felt the same. He said nothing at first, but I saw it in him this morning. The way he looked at the door before speaking, as if expecting it to open of its own accord. When I asked him directly, he shrugged again, and, though not convincingly, said, "Just the storm." But the storm had quieted some in the night, quiet enough that I should have heard something, had there been anything to hear. The town was already awake when we came down. People moved about their business with a steady, unhurried rhythm. No one seemed concerned with the storm, nor with our presence. We were acknowledged, greeted politely, and then observed. Mrs. Calder prepared another meal for us. Bread again, broth, warm and filling enough. I found I had little appetite for it. The others ate more readily. Elias especially, who seems to have taken comfort in the routine of the place. "There's order here," he said. "That counts for something." Bram did not respond. I asked after Thomas this morning, carefully. Mr. Calder listened as I explained that one of our men had gone missing the night before we reached the town. He nodded as though the matter were unfortunate, but not surprising. "The coast can be unkind," he said, "especially in weather such as this." I pressed him for further, asking if anyone from the town had been near the shore from the previous night. He said no, not directly, though some of the men had been keeping watch from higher ground. "For wreckage," he added, "or survivors." The word survivors struck me as odd, given that he had not yet been told of our full number. I let it pass. The church bell rang shortly before midday, a single low toll. The townsfolk began to gather without instruction, moving toward the church in small, quiet groups. While none ignored the summons, no one sang hymns as they approached the chapel, with no friendly small talk or idle chit-chat as they filed into the steeple building. Elias insisted we attend. "It would be poor form not to," he said, "given the hospitality we've been shown." Captain Hale agreed. I would have preferred otherwise. The interior of the church is modest, though well kept. Wooden pews, a simple altar, no excess decoration. The air inside felt close in and enclosed in a way that made the space feel smaller than it really was. The preacher is a man of indeterminate age. His hair is dark, with a touch of gray. His features are sharp, but not severe. He speaks plainly, without flourish, yet there is something in his voice that captures attention. He spoke of provision, of endurance, and of the Lord's hand in guiding those who find themselves where they must be. "The storm does not take without reason," he said. "It delivers where there is need." Some of the townsfolk nodded at this, as though it were a familiar truth. "We do not question what is given," he continued. "We receive it. We are sustained by it." I glanced toward Bram. He was already looking at me. After the sermon, the townspeople dispersed as they had gathered, quietly without lingering. No one spoke to us directly, though I felt their attention all the same. Elias seemed moved by the service. "There's sense in it," he said. "A kind of acceptance." Bram spat into the dirt just outside the church. "Sounds like an excuse," he muttered. It was sometime in the late afternoon that we realized Jonas was gone. We had not been together, not all at once. The captain had set us to small tasks, checking what supplies we might salvage, speaking with the townsfolk about tools, provisions, and anything that might see us through until we could return to the ship. Jonas had been with Elias last I knew. Elias claimed he stepped away only briefly. "He was right there," he said. "Just there." No one saw him leave, nor heard anything. Again. We searched the town this time, not just the outskirts, but the streets, the spaces between the buildings, the path back towards the tree line. Nothing, not a single trace was left of Jonas. When we brought the matter to Mr. Calder, he showed concern or something close to it, but he did not seem surprised. "The land can be difficult to navigate," he said, "especially for those unfamiliar with it." "He was in your town," Bram snapped, "not lost in the woods." Calder regarded him calmly. "There are many ways in which a man can become lost," he said. "I'm finding it harder to dismiss what I feel. This place is wrong, not in any single, obvious way, but a collection of small things that do not align as they should. 2 men gone in as many days, no alarm amongst the townsfolk, just that same silent acceptance. The sun set earlier than I expected, or maybe it only feels that way. The light seemed to drain from the sky rather than fade, leaving the town in a shadow before we were prepared for it. The doors closed, and again the streets emptied, and again the silence. Bram came to me not after long. "We leave tomorrow," he said. I told him the captain would not agree to it without cause. "Then we give him cause," Bram replied, "or we leave without him." I did not answer immediately. I thought of Thomas and Jonas, on the way the preacher spoke of the storm and of how no one here seems afraid of losing a man. I find I am no longer certain that leaving will be so simple. I will keep this journal closely tonight, closer than before. October 20th, 1854. I am beginning to understand something of this place. I wish I were not. Sleep has become unreliable. I lay down as before, fully exhausted, yet rest does not come easily. When rest does come, it's not the kind that restores. It is heavy and oppressive, and filled with dreams that do not feel entirely my own. I saw Thomas, or something learning his shape. He stood at the edge of the water, while the tide was wrong. Did not call out or move towards me. He only watched. There was something wrong with his face, not in its form, but in its stillness, as though it had forgotten how to be alive. Behind him, other shapes, just beyond sight, waiting. I woke with a start, breath short and my body colder than it should have been, and weaker, far weaker. Even writing this now takes more effort than it ought. Bram noticed it as well. "You feel it?" he asked. I told him I did. "Like something's been taken," he said. That is as close as either of us has come to naming it. Elias did not share in this concern. He seems better, if anything. Rested, calm in a way that feels out of place given our circumstances. He spoke again this morning of the town, of the order it keeps, of the way its people accept what is given to them without struggle. "There's something to be learned from that," he said. "We fight too much against what we're meant to endure." Bram nearly struck him for it. I stepped between them before it came to that. Elias did not react. He only watched us the same way that quiet townspeople do. I no longer believe Jonas and Thomas are lost. We made another attempt to speak with Captain Hale this morning regarding the departure. The storm has weakened enough that we could make it for the ship, or at least put distance between ourselves and this place. The waters may still be rough, but they are no longer the violent wall they were when we came ashore. The captain listened, considered, but then refused. "We are not conditioned to travel," he said. "Half the men can barely stand. We regroup, we regain our strength, then we move." It's the kind of reasoning that keeps a man exactly where he should not remain. Bram pulled me aside not long after. "He's wrong," he said. "He don't see it yet. Either way, we ain't waiting." And Elias? I asked. Bram looked past me, toward where Elias stood speaking with one of the townsfolk. He can stay, as far as I'm concerned. There was no anger in his voice when he said it. I find it harder now to focus my thoughts. They drift and return in fragments. I will write what I can, while I still can. We walked the edge of town this afternoon. Bram insisted on it, said he wanted to see how far it stretched, and whether there were other paths out beyond the one we came in on. There are not many. The forest thickens quickly beyond the last row of buildings. The path narrows, then disappears altogether. The land itself seems to close in, as though the town exists in a space cut off from the rest of the world. But it was not the forest that concerned me. It was what we saw behind the boarding house. There was a structure there, low to the ground, partially set into it, built with the intention to remain unseen. It certainly was not a cellar. The earth around its unlocked door was churned up like the main thoroughfare. Bram saw it too, but we said nothing to each other at that time, and we did not linger. The church bell rang again before dusk, 3 times, slow and deliberate. Elias went without hesitation as Captain Hale followed. Others from the town gathered as before. Bram and I did not go. We decided to watch instead from a distance. The doors of the church closed behind him, and for a time, there was nothing. Then, a sound, low and unified. Bram turned to me then. We leave tonight. Not tomorrow, not after rest, but tonight, he said. I agreed. We gathered what little we could without drawing attention. Food, a lantern, and what tools remained to us. The light is nearly gone now. The town is quiet again. Elias has not returned, nor has Captain Hale. I considered going after them for a moment, but only a moment, and then I remembered the look in Elias's eyes this morning. And I knew. He's not coming with us. Bram is ready. I will finish the sentry. Then we go. If this is my last... No, I will not write that. We leave now. October 21st, 1854. We made it out. I write this now with hands that do not feel entirely my own. Bram and I left under full dark. No lantern at first, and no noise beyond what could be helped. The town was as it had been each night, silent, shuttered, without a sign of movement. Yet I could not shake the feeling that we were being watched, but not followed, and that difference placed a deeper fear within me. We passed the church where the doors were closed and no light came from within, but as we moved past, I thought I heard something. Only the faintest suggestion of a sound, like breath drawn in unison. We did not stop. We kept to the path we had taken when we first arrived. It felt longer in the dark. The trees pressed in closer than I remembered, their shapes bending strangely in the low light. More than once, I thought I saw movement just beyond the reach of sight. Nothing came of it, and nothing stepped forward. When we reached the edge of the beach, the storm had nearly passed. The sea remained rough and not quite violent. The sky had cleared enough to show breaks in the cloud, pale light pushing through. The ship still stood where we anchored her. We made for it without speaking. The small boat we had used to reach shore was still there, though I cannot say why it had not been taken by the tide. We did not question it, nor did we slow. We rowed poorly at first, weak as we were, but fear lent strength where none should be. I looked back once, and there they were, at the edge of the town, along the rise just before the tree line. Some of the townsfolk were watching us. It placed an anchor of unease in the pit of my stomach. No one moved or called out. They just stood there as though seeing us off. Bram saw them too, but he said nothing and neither did I. We reached the ship just before dawn. Climbing aboard took more effort than it should have. My arms trembled with strain, my breath short, even after such little exertion. Bram fared no better. We did not search the vessel and did not take stock of what remained. We only cut anchor and left. I do not know how long we sailed before reaching safer waters. The days after are unclear. I remember little beyond exhaustion and thirst. November 3rd, 1854. We have returned home, or near enough to call it such. There are others now who have asked questions, and we have been spoken to by officials. We've answered what we can: storm, loss of men, disorientation. No one presses too hard. It is easier, I think, to accept the sea as the cause than to consider anything else. Bram has taken ill. He does not rise from his bed. He complains of weakness, of a pain that does not settle in any one place. He asked me yesterday if I felt it too. I told him no, though I do not know why I lied. The sun troubles me in a way I cannot easily explain. It does not burn, but it does not warm. I find myself avoiding it when I can, preferring the shade in the evening. My appetite has changed. Food sits poorly. Bread tastes like nothing, and meat is far worse. I force myself to eat for appearance's sake. There are moments, brief but unmistakable, where I feel something else entirely. A pull, not hunger as I have known it, something keen and specific. I dream still of the shore, of those figures standing just beyond the reach of light, of Thomas and Jonas and Captain Hale, and of that town. I hear its church bells sometimes, though I know it cannot be real. November 7th, 1854. Bram is dead. They say it was the fever. That his body simply gave out after what we endured. He will be buried by week's end. I stood at his bedside this morning and looked upon him. And for a moment, I thought I saw something beneath the stillness. It's as if he wasn't completely dead. I waited with my breath caught in my sallow chest. But his remained still, and his eyes shut and lifeless. I left before they could ask me to stay. I do not believe I am well. There are hours now I cannot account for. Moments where I find myself standing in places without memory of walking there. Last night, I woke outside in the street with no coat and no recollection of how I had come to be there. I fear sleep, and yet I crave it. November 10th, 1854. I understand now. They did not need to stop us. They let us go. I feel it more clearly with each passing day, like an illness. Something placed. Something that feeds in silence. I have tried to deny it, tried to convince myself that it would pass, that whatever weakness we carried from that place would leave us in time, but it has not left. It has settled and taken a deeper root. The hunger is no longer vague, no longer something I can mistake for simple fatigue. It is sharp now. I know what it wants. I have begun to keep my distance from others out of necessity. There are moments, brief but growing, where I find myself watching them too closely, listening not to what they say, but to what moves beneath it. The pulse. God help me, I hear it. The sun does nothing for me now. It does not burn, but it reminds me of something I am no longer a part of. I turn from it without thinking, as one might turn from a stranger. I remember the preacher's words clearer now than when I first heard them. We do not take, we receive. I understand what he meant. The storm does not bring them victims. It brings them continuation. I do not know how long I have before it becomes too much to resist. I tell myself I will leave before that happens, that I will go somewhere far from others, somewhere empty where no one can be harmed from what I am becoming. But even as I write this, I know it's a lie. because I remember the shore, the stillness, and the way they stood and watched us go. They knew. This is how it spreads. Not with violence or pursuit, but with patience for men like me walking back into the world. God help me.
This episode of Tales was written and edited by Enviro with additional writing and voice work by Brody Masons. Episode artwork was created by the one and only Kylie. Her social media info will be in the listener's notes, so go check it out. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, be sure to follow and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. You can also find Tales on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram for more dark stories and folklore. Thank you for listening, and remember, not every warm welcome is offered in kindness. Sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who invite you to stay.